one day left. Well, one Enonochian day left anyway. Masai lay in bed and stared up at the ceiling. A hollow weight pressed upon his chest. Would he live or would he die? What would the next couple of days be like? A storm of uncertainty had migrated over Masai's life, and he didn't exactly revel in the chaos. Even in all her divinity, Anakanti also showed signs of unease. Whenever they cuddled, she nuzzled him intently and held him so close to her, as if to merge their forms into one. When they kissed even deeper and longer than normal. A soft popping noise echoed out, and Anakanti walked into the room, a somber frown plastered on her face. Masai glanced up at her, his grin half-hearted.
How was the judgment?
Anakanti shrugged.
Most of them were vexed you and Joyu killed during the festival. Despite them being there for murderous intent, a surprisingly large number of them didn't turn gray automatically. The man you asked me to spare, Vico Dub, actually went to R.
A grim vibration chimed in Masai's soul. To overcompensate, Masai poured as much eagerness into his words.
The festival was a huge success. I bet that it'll be highly anticipated next year.
I hope you will get to plan it next year.
Her eyes became watery.
I am not going to lie to you, my beloved. I am really scared.
Masai sat up and reached out for her. When she grabbed his hand, he said,
What do you have to be scared about? You're Lady Death.
I would give up being Lady Death if it meant I did not have to risk losing you forever.
She sat beside him on the bed and then fell into his chest. Masai wrapped her close and kissed the top of her head.
If you die, I have no choice but to send you to R. The only way I could keep you around is to turn you into a jackal or split your soul in half. Doing so would prevent you from joining your family in R. I could not do that to you.
Masai caressed her back and squeezed her a little tighter.
What's the point of R if you're not there? I wish I could stay by your side without having to be turned into a jackal or being eternally damned.
Really? You would give up paradise for me?
Anakanti had looked up at him, and she gaped at him with growing delight. In response, Masai leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. Though they didn't touch tongues, an immense river of passion flowed from one to the other.
You're my paradise. If I could be like Dios, your father, I could be happy forever.
Anakanti rose from the bed and walked to the balcony. She held her arms close to her chest, and she didn't even look at Masai. He followed her, and the cool morning air tickled his exposed, naked flesh.
What is it? What's bothering you?
Anakanti whirled around and placed her back against the rail.
Do you remember when I told you there were gatherings of various death gods and goddesses every century?
Yeah. You said it was your only real chance to interact, right?
Yes. I have a friend. Her name is Hyalga. She is a death goddess in a land to the far north of Enonoch, a place called Norsika. Hyalga had a man there with her, a former human whom she forever changed. He was, in all purposes, her holy concubine.
I thought you said the only way you could keep me here was to turn me into a jackal or split my soul.
Anakanti grabbed his hands and stared deeply into his soul through his eyes.
That is because I did not want to deny you your eternal happiness in paradise. I did not know you were willing to choose to be with me rather than one day joining your family. I did not think it was an option because the concubine has to willingly offer themselves for the process. I was afraid you would not want to be bound to me forever.
Why wouldn't I want to be bound to you forever? I love you.
I love you too.
Anakanti rubbed his hands with her thumbs.
The problem is, Hyalga's concubine was forever banned from entering their warrior heaven. I was afraid it would work the same way here. You would have to choose, me or your family.
Masai grazed his fingers against her chin.
I love you, and I'd love to spend the rest of time by your side.
He kissed her briefly on the lips and then pulled away.
Secondly, with me by your side, we could carry on the fight together against the Five, and force Dia to lift her restrictions on you. One day, You'll meet my parents.
Anakanti hugged him tighter, and she wept on his bare skin. The warmth of his tears made his goosebumps rise.
All those years of isolation and loneliness were well worth it, just so I could hold you in this moment. That leaves one last risk.
What do you mean?
Anakanti took a deep breath.
I have to bombard your soul with divine magic, so much so that it could risk bursting your soul.
Masai bit the bottom of his lip and gave the goddess a small wince.
To keep you forever, I must risk losing you forever.
All or nothing, huh? Masai shook his head and then chuckled several times. When he locked gazes with Anakanti, he sent her all his warmth and love.
Do it. All or nothing. I won't live another day without being bound to you.
She hesitated for a moment, but then nodded.
We might as well take the gamble now. Prepare yourself. Hyalga told me this would hurt.
Anakanti closed her eyes, and her body glowed with an intense onyx shimmer. Every inch of her skin became painted in the vibrant, constantly throbbing power, and all of her details became consumed with the black. Within the blink of an eye, the energy arced off of her and slammed into Masai. His tendons ripped from his body. Every cell screamed out in anguish, and his mind shrank and spiraled into itself until it was no more. When Masai tried to yell, the air was ripped from his lungs, like a magician pulling out scarves. His limbs flapped around wildly for a moment, but then they sort of stopped existing. Each of his internal organs turned to jelly within him, and they were both moist and slick, sloshing in him like he were a barrel. And then there was blackness. Nothing but a sea of obsidian all around. Masai tried to look around, but then it occurred to him. He didn't have a body. He didn't have a self. He was merely an echo of something that once existed. And even now, the vibrations started to diminish. A great swelling awoke in him, and then peace. Anakanti watched as the flowing mass of onyx energy consumed the only person who had ever loved her. Though she knew of her origins, she had been barred from ever speaking about them to anyone while on the mortal plane. In spite of her mother's efforts, Anakanti had overcome those boundaries. She enjoyed sweet kisses, warm embraces, and whispered secrets. The notion of true love was more than just a brief flashing echo in someone else's life. It was something that lived in her as well. And now, she wouldn't have to witness an end to her love. It wouldn't die, like the millions of loves that she had seen in the mind's eyes of those she judged. Her love would be forever. At first, the mask covered Masai's form, and then it coated his entire body, much in the same way it did to her moments before. Although there was still some chance for grave danger to intercede, surely the fates had something good finally planned for her. Anakanti had overcome so much till this point. She deserved this. The black energy took shape of a man. A nimbus of light swirled around Masai. Anakanti grinned, but her smile died an instant later. Crackles of white lightning flickered within the boundaries of the glowing black body. A strange chaos rippled through Masai's core, and his right arm broke off from the body like the bark of a tree. It sizzled and then evaporated when it hit the ground.
No, Masai!
Anakanti reached out and gripped his other arm. A searing spark jolted into her skin, and she screamed. Instinctively, she drew her hand back and glared at it with utter disbelief. Ugly blisters covered her palm, although they faded the longer she looked at them. In mere seconds, her hand was unblemished. What was that spark? It was unlike anything she had ever encountered before. Could that have been pain? Masai's head twisted violently, and then it broke off from the body. It floated for a moment before evaporating like the right arm. Anakanti fell to her knees, and her hands went to her stomach. Tears trailed down her cheeks, and she openly wept.
No, please. Do not take this from me, not this.
The legs disintegrated slowly like grains of sand being displaced by a savage desert gust. Anakanti, The mighty death goddess of Enonoch bawled all the harder. A great gnarled tension had awoken in her, and its splendor had left her with only a fraction of strength. Why? Why did this have to happen? It wasn't fair. Her mother, her dreaded mother, had doomed her to this life of isolation and solitude. Didn't she deserve even the smallest fraction of affection? Hadn't she suffered enough? A small red seed floated amongst her torment. While the seed was such a small thing at first, it would grow into a great tree of vengeance. Dia and all the five would drown in her wrath.
I will remember you, my sweet.
She rubbed her stomach affectionately again.
You will live on in my mind and in the...
A tiny black bead of energy hovered where once Masai had stood. Every 3 seconds or so, it flared to life and sent out barely visible waves of power. Anakanti focused on it. She sniffled one last time, and then she slowly got to her feet.
Is this all that is left of my sweet Masai? A simple pebble to caress in the expanse of my realm.
She reached out for it cautiously.
If that is to be the decree of fate, then I shall cherish this.
She sniffled again.
I will cherish you forever, my sweet Masai.
Her fingers grazed the bead of pulsating black energy. It exploded. A savage surge of power blasted against the mighty death goddess, and her back struck the balcony rail with a solid thud. Her hair flailed behind her as a massive gust extended out in all directions. Her eyes squinted as she stared at the now tremendous and bright pillar of black energy that rose from the balcony, all the way to the sky. Clouds swirled around the top, which was not even in sight. The air vibrated vigorously, and it tickled Anakanti's skin. Even Anakanti's spirit danced with surprise and wonder. The energy of the pillar and the energy in the air resonated with her power. Anakanti licked her lips, and she tried to take steady breaths. Her nerve endings sparkled with sensations that she'd never experienced before, but she merely understood through the memories of others. The pillar of light violently enlarged several feet in diameter, and Anakanti found herself on the edge of its reign. Would it burn her like before? Probably so. Before it actually touched her, though, it began to shrink back. It formed into the shape of a man just like before. Anakanti winced and waited. The light faded altogether. In its place, Masai stood whole and complete. His eyes opened wide, and he looked at her.
Anakanti, what happened? I feel strange.
She wrapped him in her arms and she held him close. His body, while slightly warm, did not exude the same degree of heat she had expected. A strange scent lingered on his skin as well.
Just hold me.
And so he did. Her tears flowed from her eyes, but she didn't care. Masai's strong arms draped around her, and she shivered into his form. It was a solid form, and much more sturdy than she remembered.
My beloved, what did you do to me? Things feel different. I can't explain it fully, but everything resonates with new purpose and wonder.
Anakanti stepped away from him and gazed deep into his eyes. His irises shimmered much in the same way they always had, although now they glimmered with something extra. She dared to try and speak what lingered in her mind, yet the words died on her tongue as she tried. No matter how much will she put into wanting to say the words that connected to her secrets, cosmic cruelty denied her. She smiled despite that failure.
You are no longer the man you were. Or at the very least, the soul that dwells in you is no longer the same.
Yes. The more she breathed in his presence, the more certain she was.
Understand that I am unfamiliar with...
She gestured toward him and then the balcony.
What we performed here today. But I do know about divine magic, and especially death magic. Your soul vibrates with a divine frequency that is closer to mine than what you were before. Your body still feels human, but unlike before, it is more like a clay jar, holding something miraculous inside.
Masai frowned at her.
What do you mean, clay jar?
Anakanti ran smooth hands over Masai's form. and she grinned all the wider. His skin hummed with death magic. Wait, was it just death magic? She gently massaged his flesh and then willed her own power to flow into him. Masai gasped a little. The cells in his body seemed to awaken to a greater degree, and they whispered things to Anakanti's mind. Her thoughts buzzed wildly, and she grinned widely.
What? What is it, my love?
You are like me, although not quite as powerful, and not fully complete either. I was wrong before. You are not like a clay jar. You are like a hatching egg.
So, if I'm like an egg, that means when I finally break free of my shell...
He paused a moment.
When I die, am I going to be a god?
I think so. In your current state, your body won't age or get sick, but you can still be injured and die. However, when that does happen, you will become like Dios. I am certain of it.
Tears welled in her eyes.
We really can be together forever.
His eyes lit up even more splendidly.
Really? That sounds wonderful. Now I can fight to my fullest tomorrow, without fear of being separated from you.
Masai's smile split his face. A small aching took hold of Anakanti, and for a brief moment, she wondered to herself. Should I tell him the one secret I'm allowed to? She swallowed hard and then hugged him tighter.
Yes, my love. Still, I am afraid that the great energy pillar will attract unwanted attention from people within my order and without.
Perhaps, but they can't find us unless you want them to, right?
If it were only mortals, then I would not be so concerned. The energy from the pillar was so intense that I am certain everyone felt it.
A brief silence lingered between them.
Oh, you mean everyone?
Yes. I wonder how dreadful things would get for us if Dia herself stepped in place to oppose us. Fighting a mortal pharaoh and legions of clerics is one thing, but doing combat against not only gods and goddesses, but Dia herself, can we truly win?
Another moment of quiet reflection danced between them before Masai kissed her forehead.
Let's leave those worries for tomorrow.
He took her hand and led her toward the bed.
Let's drown ourselves in absolute pleasure, yes? The kind that only you and I can give one another.
And for the first time in many moments, all of her anguish flaked away into forgotten nothingness. She moved ahead, took the lead, and threw her beloved and devoted cleric onto the bed.